there, what does being a judge do? Like, what does it mean to be a judge?
Well, I'm an appellate court judge. I'm a judge on the Arizona Court of Appeals, which means that we do appeals. So whoever loses when they're in the Superior Court, then they file a notice of appeal, and then that appeal comes to my court. So when I get a case, I'm looking at briefs and the record, the file of everything that happened in the lower court, and then I sit on a panel with 3 judges. So we each look at the record, we read the briefs, we have oral argument if we need to with the attorneys. So the attorneys will come to our court and they'll argue, and each side will have 20 minutes to argue. And yeah, any of the judges can ask questions so that we can resolve the appeal. Then after argument, the 3 of us get together, we agree on a decision, and then one of us writes the decision, and then we publish it.
When did you want to become a judge?
I wanted to be an attorney since I was like 8 or 9 years old. I was always into history, and I always admired Abraham Lincoln. So I wanted to be an attorney from the time I was a little kid. I really didn't think about being a judge until I had been in my career as an appellate attorney for 4 or 5 years, and I applied to be a judge on the Court of Appeals for about 10 years. I started when I was 39, which is pretty young to be an appellate court judge. I got appointed when I was 49. I was always an appellate attorney, so being an appellate court judge is just the top of my career path, and it's something that I always wanted to do.
So I know that you argued in front of the Supreme Court.
Yes, I did.
What was that like?
It really was a once in a lifetime experience. I mean, once the Supreme Court agreed to hear our case, I wrote the briefs for the state of Arizona, and I wrote the brief and I rewrote the brief, and it was edited and edited. There's a huge book on how you write briefs and argue cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. It's over 1,000 pages. So I read that book and I followed what it said. And then when it got time for argument, we argued it in April of 2006. And I flew back there, and several of my colleagues flew back there. My boss, the Arizona Attorney General, flew back there, and we had moot courts, which are like practice arguments before attorneys who act like the Supreme Court justices. So I did 2 or 3 of those back there, and I had gone out there about a month before to watch a Supreme Court argument, so I would know how things go. And when I was back there, I went to the clerk's office that runs the Supreme Court, and I met with the United States Marshal who runs the Supreme Court building, and they actually took me down into the well of the Supreme Court, showed me how things work. the physical things like the podium goes up and down, because some people are short, some people are tall. There's a crank that makes it go up. So they taught me how to use that. And then the day of argument, it was really nerve-wracking. I didn't get much sleep the night before, and I didn't eat breakfast. And I went there, and all the attorneys who argue the cases go into a room called the lawyer's lounge, where you wait. And I met with the clerk of the court, and he shook my hand and made small talk with me. And I learned afterward they do that because they want to make sure you're appropriately dressed. Because if you're not appropriately dressed, they have a whole closet in that room of ties and jackets and stuff that you can borrow. So I was appropriately dressed, so I didn't worry about it. But that's why they meet you, to make sure that you're appropriately dressed. And then when you go in for argument, you've got 3 sets of tables. You've got the main table where the people who are arguing the case are, and then you've got a table behind that for the attorneys in the next case, and then there's another table for people behind them if it's a third case, so that when the Supreme Court justices come in, the people already they're ready to argue. And then when that case is over with, those people immediately leave, and then the people from the second table move up so that there's no waste of time. So, they really have it choreographed.
So after you won your argument and changed federal law, how did that affect your career as a judge?
Well, they only argue 80 cases a year now. And so I was one of 80 people for the whole country. So it's a pretty, it's a unique experience that very few people get to do. They have people who will draw you when you're arguing. So I have a painting on my wall in my chambers showing me arguing my case before the Supreme Court, and I'm sure that it helped me when I left the Arizona Attorney General's office to go to the U.S. Attorney's office. I'm sure it helped me when I got on the Court of Appeals too.
What do you love about the law? Because I feel like in order to be a judge or a lawyer, you have to really enjoy something about that process. Is there anything that you enjoy about the law or that process in general?
Sure. Well, I was always an appellate attorney in my career, so I did appeals. And what I liked about it, well, there were several things I liked about it, but when you're doing an appeal, there's a set universe. Whatever happens below is all that you need to be concerned about. Of course, in addition to figuring out what the law is, but when I got an appeal, I got a box on my desk, and everything I needed to know about that case was in that box. Trial attorneys, when you see Perry Mason or Matlock or other TV attorneys, they're going out and they're getting evidence and they're finding witnesses. And when you're doing appeal, you don't do any of that. So I didn't have to worry about that. When you're an appellate attorney, you write, a lot of it is writing, and I love to research and write and analyze the law. And the other thing that I liked about it was I got to argue. I argued 84 appeals in my career. I was one of the top 2 or 3 attorneys in the state of Arizona in terms of the number of cases that I argued. And it's, in a way, it's kind of a performance because you're up there, you're presenting your case, you're answering questions from the judges. So for 20 minutes, you're the star of the show. And I like that. And as a judge, I'm just on the other side of the bench. So I get to, I still get to research and write. And I get to ask the questions now or argument. So I like that interaction. So I like the writing, the researching, and I like the interaction with the attorneys and the other judges.
So, what does an average day at your job look like?
It's not exciting. I mean, I like it. It's good work, but I get up in the morning, I get ready for work, I eat breakfast, I read the paper because I like to be informed about what's going on in the world, and then I go into my chambers at the court. I have an assistant, and then I have 2 law clerks who are brand new law school graduates. And they stayed with me for 2 years. And I meet with them, we talk about the cases that are assigned to me, and they do the first draft for me. So they draft it for me, I review it, and then I work with them until I'm happy with the draft, and then we send it out to the other 2 judges for their comment. And then once a week, the 3 judges and their clerks meet in what's called a calendar. We have a calendar each week where we handle 5 or 6 cases a week, and the law clerks present the cases that are assigned to them, and the 3 of us talk about the case. We ask the clerks questions, we ask the other judges questions, and then we get an idea of how we think the case should come out. And then if we have oral argument, then we go and we have oral argument. And those last for 40 minutes. Each side has 20 minutes. Some days we have 2 cases. Some days we have 3. So we can be in oral argument 2 or 3 hours at a time. And then we come back after argument. We decide if I changed our minds or anything. And then we go back to our chambers and we finalize the drafts, and then we issue them. So that's a lot of what I do. As a judge, though, I'm a public official. So I have a lot of seminars I teach at. I do a lot of what we call extracurricular activities that are attached to being a judge. I'm involved with a lot of activities at the court with the State Bar of Arizona. I'm currently the vice chair of the Federal, State, and Tribal Court Forum. Arizona has a lot of Indian tribes, and they each have their own court system. And the Federal, State, and Tribal Court Forum provides a place where the tribal court judges, state court judges, and Arizona federal court judges can get together and talk about issues. So we meet every 4 months. So, you know, those are the kinds of extracurricular activities that I do. So I've got, I'm busy all day, and one day doesn't necessarily look like the other.
So how would you say that cerebral palsy has affected your career? Has there been any positive effects, or?
Well, as a person with a disability, people sometimes look at you funny. They think that that you're not capable. But I mean, I've spent my career doing a job that people think that someone like me can't do. I mean, my job as an appellate attorney, as a boss, I was for 7 years. I was the Chief Counsel of the Criminal Appeals Section of the Arizona Attorney General's office. So not only did I argue my own cases, I supervised 20 other attorneys in doing appeals. So I was busy doing that. You don't get that position unless you're good at your job. So here I was, a person with cerebral palsy who shouldn't be able to do these kinds of jobs, but I was actually out there doing them. It's ended up helping my career because I stand out. I'm unique. There aren't very many people with cerebral palsy out there in the legal profession. There's only one other judge in the state of Arizona who has cerebral palsy, and she was just appointed last year. So, for several years, I stood out on my own, and it's helped me in another way as well. When you're an appellate attorney, you only have 20 minutes to argue. And most attorneys they want to cram as much as they can into those 20 minutes, so they speak really fast. And I can't speak quickly and still be understood. So I turn that to my advantage. I would be very deliberate in what I would say. And the judges knew, who I argued in front of, the judges knew that what I said was important, because I could only say so much. So the judges, I think, paid more attention to me and took more seriously what I was saying than I think some other attorneys who could speak a lot faster than I could.
What advice do you have for young people looking for a career in this industry?
The first thing I would say is get a good general education and do well in school, because at least, being an attorney, in particular being an appellate attorney, there's only so many positions open. So it's very competitive. So if you have good grades, you have a big leg up. And the other thing I would say too is, if you're in high school or if you're in college, if you can get a job as an intern and just get exposed to what lawyers do, that will go a long way. You'll make connections, you'll be able to network. That will help you in your career. I was kind of at a disadvantage in that, because I really didn't know. I mean, I always wanted to be a lawyer, but I really didn't know what it meant to be a lawyer until I actually got to law school. And even after I became one, it's not exactly what you see on TV. So if you get good grades and try to expose yourself to the legal profession, I think you'll have a leg up.
So after all of this success, what would you say your definition of success is?
Well, my job as a judge, and my job as an appellate attorney for the state of Arizona and for the United States, when I worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office, is to seek justice. So, and now as a judge, my job is to do the right thing, to figure out what the law is and apply it to help people resolve their conflicts and their disputes. So I personally had success. I've advanced in my career, but just to advance really doesn't accomplish much if you're going to help people, if you're going to help society. And I think that I've done that in my career as an attorney, and I definitely think I do that as a judge. I'm a judge in the Arizona Court of Appeals, which is an intermediate court of appeals. So over me, there's the Arizona Supreme Court, and there's the United States Supreme Court, and there's also the United States Federal Circuit Court of Appeals. So there are, more prestigious courts and judgeships than I have, but I've succeeded if I can help people resolve their cases and their problems, and I think I've done that.
So normally that's the last question, but I've had another question requested from me by Miss Allie.
Sure.
So she asked me to ask you what it was like learning to drive.
That was really an interesting experience, because I didn't learn to drive until I was 18. Most people learn to drive when they're 15 and 16, but I didn't learn to drive until I was 18, and I didn't really know how I was going to do it. My father went with me, we bought a car, and then I met with someone at Arizona State University who helped me find a driving teacher. and the driving teacher met with me, and he told me how I needed to get the car adapted. I needed to get hand controls because I can't use my legs. And then I needed to get a steering cuff so that I could put my right hand and kind of glue it onto the steering wheel so I could steer with my right hand and use a hand control for the gas and the brake with my left. And I didn't know how to do that, and I really didn't use my right arm. It really wasn't that strong. So I sat in the car with the instructor, and he said, "Now what you need to do is, you gas and brake with your left, and you'll steer with your right arm." And I said, "Well, I can't do that. I've never done that before." And he said, "Well, I'm sorry to hear that because that's the only way that you can drive." So I told him I'd work on that. And I would sit in my driveway for hours just moving the steering wheel around so that I could get my arms strong enough to drive. And then, the instructor took me out driving, and I drove, and I got my license. So I'm 57 now, so I've been driving since I was 18. So I've been driving for several decades now. For me, for someone who can't really walk a long distance, being able to drive is a big deal, for me. So I enjoy driving. If I can drive, I'll drive. When most of the time, when my girlfriend and I go somewhere, I drive.
Thank you so much for this interview. This has been
Oh,
amazing.
you bet. You bet. My pleasure. The best of luck to you.
Oh, thank you so much.
And feel free to call or email or anything if you need anything more from me.
Will do. Thank you again.
Thank you. You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.